Hey guys, YouTuber Notre here. Alright, and now here I am continuing with my countdown of return picks for the next top 10 best hand-drawn anime Disney movies. Here I am with a review for what I have as number 7, which is The Hunchback of Notre Dame. So, growing up, I didn't really watch this film all that much. I mean, I did watch it like a few times growing up, but it wasn't a film that I really did watch like regularly growing up. But over the years, I have like watched it more, and yeah, this film it is good. Yeah, it is like a pretty good film overall. Yeah, as far as adaptations of The Hunchback of Notre Dame goes, um, I is this the best version? Probably not. Because, yeah, as I'm sure just about all you know, The Hunchback of Notre Dame, the original story, it was actually, like, really, really dark and stuff. So, yeah, this version, this is kind of reminds me of Pinocchio in a sense, because, yeah, just like how they did with Pinocchio, how Pinocchio, the Pinocchio book, it was really, like, a lot darker and really sadistic than the Disney film was. And this is kind of the same way. How the Hunchback of Notre Dame, the original story, it was like a lot darker and stuff. This film, this is like taking a kind of more of a lighter approach and making it the film, the story, more like family friendly oriented. So yeah, but this still is like for a Disney film, this is still pretty dark overall. I mean, yeah, this film actually does like take a lot of chances, and it is like for a Disney film, it is pretty dark. So yeah, of course, like and like as I was just saying, like as far as film adaptations go, this probably isn't really the best adaptation because yeah, there are other famous film versions of Hunchback of Notre Dame, like 1923 starring Lon Chaney, and then 1939 with Charles Laughton. So yeah, and so yeah, since those films really are not really like taking the family friendly approach to them, and they're really trying to stick more to the original story. Well, I've never actually read the, the original Victor Hugo book, but yeah, from what I've heard, like the those other versions are probably like a lot closer to the original story and a lot more darker and stuff since they don't take the family friendly style approach to them. So yeah, this probably isn't the best variation of the story, but yeah, it is still like a pretty good film overall. And yeah, as far as like taking the family friendly approach, I guess it does tell the story good enough. And yeah, it is like I said, it is like a pretty dark film. It still does take a lot of chances. So yeah, of course, like I was saying, how it's taking the more family friendly approach, and really, like this film, it does like make some changes to and just from the original story. Like one of the like more well-known changes is that in this version, Frollo, he's not a priest, he's a judge. And yeah, they also like do other things too, like how like during this like the Festival of Fools ceremony, like when Quasimodo is named king, like he doesn't actually commit like any sort of crime or anything. He just like the people end up turning on him. And same thing with Esmeralda, how she doesn't commit a crime either. It's just like magic she does. So yeah, this film does like take some it does like make some changes from the original story. And yeah, this was the first film like the film that came right after Pocahontas. So yeah, well, yeah, so yeah, I guess like they did kind of like do kind of the same thing with Pocahontas, how they did kind of like change some things up, like how they did in Pocahontas, but and so yeah, yeah, so yeah, they do that, and so yeah, yeah, and this film actually does have, of course, like some really famous characters. Of course, it has Quasimodo, it has Esmeralda, it has Frollo, uh, Captain Phoebus. It has the three gargoyles, Victor, Hugo, and Laverne. And so, yeah, this film, of course, does have some really famous characters, and they're all, like, pretty good overall. And yeah, of course, like, the film also has, like, a really big voice cast in this film. Like, you have Tom Holtz, Demi Moore, Kevin Kline, Tony Jay, Jason Alexander, Charles Kimbrough. So, yeah, a pretty big cast. as for this, and so yeah, yeah, but not everything about this film really does work. I mean, there are some things that really don't make sense and stuff, such as like I think the romance between Phoebus and Esmeralda in this film, it really isn't that interesting. And plus, I really didn't see why they really did this. I mean, couldn't they have just had like Quasimodo and Esmeralda have a romantic relationship? I mean, how did Phoebus come along and just fall in love with them, Esmeralda? So yeah, that's something that don't work about it. And yeah, one of the things that Nostalgia Critic pointed out in his Disney Summer review for this film that I actually think is like a pretty good idea. He felt that maybe like in this film, the gargoyles, it would have worked better if the gargoyles probably were just like Quasimodo was imagining them in this film, and like Quasimodo just they weren't actually alive, and Quasimodo was just like imagining it, and it probably would have worked better that way. I agree with him, since like Quasimodo was like really in a life of isolation, and since like he didn't have anyone to talk to, if he just like pretended that the gargoyles were alive so he could have people to talk to, I think it would have worked a lot better. But then yeah, as it turned out, like that's not the way it was done, and yeah, the gargoyles really were alive because like they actually do like help fight in the battle at the end of the film. So yeah, there's that. And of course, like Frollo, he's just like one of the greatest Disney villains of all time. I mean, people really do seem to really call Frollo the best thing about this film, and yeah, he definitely is one of them. I mean, yeah, Frollo, of course, like sings that great Hellfire song, and yeah, and Frollo just he's like really menacing and stuff, and just yeah, Frollo just he is like a really great villain, and yeah, there are even times where he really doesn't speak, but you can just see like he can be like really intimidating just by the looks on his face. So yeah, Frollo, he's just an awesome villain. And so yeah, and as far as Quasimodo goes, I mean, yeah, Quasimodo like animated, he really doesn't look uh that creepy. I mean, of course, like Quasimodo has been known for just being just a hideous type of person, but yeah, in this version, like he really doesn't look that bad. I mean, if you look at like the other renditions, like if you look at Lon Chaney and Charles Laughton's appearance as Quasimodo, like they'll probably scare you a lot more than Quasimodo looks in this movie. Like I'll put a link to like how of pictures of both Lon Chaney's and Charles Laughton's makeup of Quasimodo in the description if you want to see how they look if you haven't seen them before, because yeah, they look like a lot more hideous than Quasimodo does in this film. So yeah, yeah, and so yeah, the film overall, like, while it does have its problems, it is still like told like the story is told like well enough for like a family style version of the story. And so yeah, it is like a still a pretty good film overall. I would give it 3.5 stars out of 4. I mean, yeah, well, like this tale is probably like looked at in a way for kind of like kind of like told in the sense of like sort of the Phantom of the Opera in a sense. And yeah, this takes more of like the ugly duckling approach, and it's more told like that way. But yeah, it's still like told really well, like I've said. So yeah, it is still a really good film nonetheless. So yeah, can't say that enough. Just pretty good film overall, and yeah, definitely like worth a watch. So yeah, let me just get right into it. Alright, so as the film opens up, it opens up in like 1482 in Paris, and it shows that gypsy puppeteer, Clopin, he's starting to like tell the tale of the origins of the titular hunchback. Yeah, and then like as he starts to tell the tale, it shows that there are some gypsies that are like illegally sneaking into Paris, and they end up being ambushed by Judge Claude Frollo and his soldiers, and so then they then end up chasing down a gypsy woman who's in the group, and she tries to like escape with her deformed baby, but Frollo eventually ends up chasing her down, and he ends up then catching and killing her, which, I mean, I really don't see how what he did actually killed her. I mean, all he did was just kick her down to the ground, so, yeah, I really don't see how just that killed her, but, yeah. Yeah, and when Frollo then was like, saw the baby and how, like, deformed the baby was, at first he was gonna kill the baby, but then, after, like, the archdeacon ended up intervening, and he then like convinced Frollo to just raise the child to atone for his sin. And so then, yeah, Frollo ended up taking the baby in and then naming him Quasimodo. Yeah, and then 20 years passed, and it showed that Quasimodo, well, while he was like a really kind man, it showed that he just lived his entire life in the Notre Dame Cathedral as the bell ringer. Yeah, and it just showed like Quasimodo just really had not lived outside of it. It's kind of similar to how in Aladdin, how like Jasmine was just living her entire life inside of the palace. Yeah, this is kind of a similar way with Quasimodo, how he just lived his entire life in the Notre Dame Cathedral. Yeah, and yeah, as Quasimodo was talking to his gargoyle friends, Victor, Hugo, and Laverne, they then just convinced Quasimodo that he should attend the annual Festival of Fools. Well, then as he learned, like, Quasimodo ended up bringing it up to Frollo. Frollo then just told Quasimodo that he was to stay in the cathedral and that the it is his sanctuary. Harry, and that Quasimodo would actually be shunned for his deformity. But yeah. But despite the warnings, Quasimodo then ended up sneaking out of the cathedral to go to the ceremony. And yeah, when Quasimodo, he ended up like coming across Esmeralda, and Esmeralda and the other people attending the ceremony just thought that Quasimodo was like his face was just a mask, and there was like this contest to find the ugliest face in all of Paris who would be crowned king of the festival or something. And then yeah, Quasimodo like was like put in the contest, but then it was then revealed that Quasimodo wasn't wearing a mask and it was his true face, and people were like kind of freaked out at first at how hideous Quasimodo really was. But then Clopin, who was like hosting the ceremony, he then reminded everyone that they were asking for the ugliest face in Paris, and so then Quasimodo was then crowned the king of the festival or whatever, and then yeah, everybody was then celebrating. But then all of a sudden, Frollo then like had his men basically just start a riot at Quasimodo. Oh, and then yeah, after Quasimodo basically just ended up like falling down, then everybody was just laughing at him and just joining up in the riot. And Frollo, of course, he was not pleased that Quasimodo had disobeyed him, and so yeah, Frollo just was not helping Quasimodo at all. Oh, but then yeah, Esmeralda then eventually came to Quasimodo's rescue, and then yeah, but despite Frollo's like order to not release Quasimodo, Esmeralda did it, and then yeah, then Frollo then just ordered Esmeralda to be arrested by his uh, army, which included like the Captain Phoebus. But but then yeah, Esmeralda then just teleported herself away to avoid arrest, and then yeah, then Frollo just approached Quasimodo, and you just saw Frollo's face. He was just furious at Quasimodo for disobeying him. But yeah, Quasimodo then just told Frollo he would never disobey him again. And yeah, Quasimodo just returned inside the cathedral, and you just saw his face. He was just like crushed. Yeah. And then yeah, Esmeralda ended up also following Quasimodo inside the cathedral. And then yeah, she was then like approached by Phoebus, and yeah, it just like showed that Phoebus like really was very interested in Esmeralda, and then yeah, Phoebus then just like refused to arrest Esmeralda inside the cathedral for her witchcraft, and he basically just had her confined to the cathedral. But yeah, Frollo then just warned Esmeralda that if she would step foot outside of the cathedral, then she would be basically arrested and murdered, pretty much. Yeah. And eventually, like, Esmeralda ended up, like, coming across Quasimodo again, and then they befriended each other, and then Quasimodo then just helped Esmeralda escape out of the cathedral in return for her saving him during the ceremony. Yeah. And then, like, as Esmeralda was leaving, she gave Quasimodo a gift, which was a pendant that actually contained a map to the hideout of the gypsies, which was known as the Court of Miracles. And yeah, then later on, it was then like revealed that Frollo did like have some really like lustful feelings for Esmeralda. And then yeah, Frollo then was just like singing the Hellfire song, and basically he was just like a way of him saying that the only way that he could really like cure like his sexual desires, let's say, was to really just destroy Esmeralda and stuff. And yeah, when he like learns that Esmeralda had escaped, he then he just like basically instigated just a citywide manhunt for Esmeralda, and it included just like setting fire to just all the houses that would be in his way. And so then yeah, as Frollo was just searching for Esmeralda, he just ended up like burning in a bunch of people's homes. And then yeah, it showed then Phoebus just was like really not in support of what Frollo was doing. And eventually like when Frollo ordered Phoebus to just like capture Esmeralda and stuff and just set fire to a home like Phoebus just refused to do it. And so then yeah, Frollo just ended up like sentencing Phoebus to death. But gosh, it's after 10:30 at night, and that stupid dog is still out there barking away. Gosh, I have some very inconsiderate next door neighbors. Yeah, and then Phoebus ended up being struck by an arrow as he was trying to flee, and then he ended up like falling into the river. But Esmeralda was able to save Phoebus before he drowned, and took him back to the cathedral to uh, heal him up and just basically give him some refuge. And then yeah, with some encouragement from the gargoyles, then Quasimodo then and was going to like confess his true feelings for Esmeralda, but then when he discovered that her and Phoebus were in love, Quasimodo was just then crushed pretty much. And eventually, when Frodo ended up returning to the cathedral, he eventually like found out that Quasimodo actually did help Esmeralda escape. And he was just like telling Quasimodo that he knows about the Court of the Miracles. Well, and he had intentions to attack at dawn, and of course, like what this really was just Frollo setting Quasimodo up so he could actually lead him to the Court of Miracles, so he could capture all the gypsies. And so then, yeah, that's what happened. Quasimodo like believed Frollo, so he used the map that Esmeralda gave him, and Quasimodo and Phoebus both then eventually found the Court of Miracles, and they were trying to warn the gypsies about it, but the gypsies like just weren't listening, and eventually like of course Frollo ended up following them to the court and ended up like capturing the gypsies. And then yeah, Frollo also ended up like capturing Esmeralda, and he had the intentions to really just burn Esmeralda at the stake. Hey, when Esmeralda like rejected Frollo's advances, and then yeah, he had Quasimodo. Frollo had Quasimodo taken back to the cathedral and just chained up to watch what's gonna happen to Esmeralda. But then yeah, after like Quasimodo like saw more about what was gonna happen to Esmeralda, Quasimodo then just like broke free from the chains and saved Esmeralda from being burnt. And yeah, Esmeralda was just like passed out, and then yeah, eventually like Quasimodo then just like held Esmeralda up over the cathedral and just shouted "Sanctuary," of course, which is like the famous Quasimodo line. Yeah, "Sanctuary, sanctuary." Yeah, and Phoebus also ended up like releasing the gypsies, and so yeah, the gypsies along with the other people of Paris like were fighting with Frollo's army, and then yeah, Frollo and his men eventually like did break into the cathedral, and then yeah, Quasimodo and the gargoyles also ended up like pouring out some molten lead onto streets to prevent anyone from entering, but Frollo was able to get inside, and then yeah, Esmeralda then like chased Quasimodo and Esmeralda up to the balcony, and then yeah, Frollo like had a sword with him, and as Quasimodo fell over an edge with a Frollo, like Esmeralda was trying to pull Quasimodo back up, but then yeah, Frollo like was and like ended up like being able to climb onto a ledge or something. Yeah, and also I should point out that yeah, like throughout this film, Frollo was like just telling Quasimodo that his mother had abandoned him, which is the reason that Frollo actually did take Quasimodo in. But then yeah, Frollo confessed to Quasimodo that he murdered his mother, and now he had intention to murder Quasimodo. But then yeah, as Esmeralda was trying to pull Quasimodo back up, then like as Frollo was about to really just pretty much cut Esmeralda's arms off, then like the ledge she was standing on, or the pillar, or whatever it was another gargoyle. Yeah, whatever it was. Frollo, it ended up breaking, and Frollo ended up just falling to his in the molten lead to his death. And yeah, and like Esmeralda also ended up like losing her grip on Quasimodo, but Quasimodo ended up being caught by Phoebus, this on a lower floor. And so then yeah, when then Quasimodo then he then accepted the love that Phoebus and Esmeralda had from each other, and then they gave them his blessing and stuff. And then yeah, the next day, yeah, it showed then Quasimodo was then ready to leave the cathedral into the outside world, and it showed that there was this like young girl really embracing Quasimodo and just like really just pretty much accepting him for who Quasimodo really is and not really judging by his looks, which I guess is the moral of this story, really. And then, yeah, Quasimodo was then just hailed as a hero by the people of Paris, and yeah, Quasimodo just ended up being accepted in their society, and yeah, and then it just like panned out from the cathedral, and yeah, you actually did see the words "the end," so yeah, that's how it ended. So yeah, a pretty good film overall. Probably not the best adaptation of the story, but for a family-friendly style story, it is told pretty well. And like I said, for like a Disney film, it is still like a pretty dark film, and it does take a lot of chances. I mean, yeah, for a Disney film, it really did some stuff that really hadn't really been seen before in a lot of other Disney films. So, yeah, so it is an enjoyable film. I mean, I would really see why people really do like this film. Well, really do like watch this film all the time. Yeah, because this has been known to really be like a favorite for a lot of people for when it comes to the Disney films. Like a lot of people really say this film is one of their favorites. So, and it's understandably so why. It is a real enjoyable film. I mean, yeah, it has a real lot of enjoyable elements. Not everything works about it, but it is still like a really good film nonetheless. So, yeah, definitely it is worth a watch, and yeah, you'll probably watch it over and over again. It is like very watchable. So, yeah, like I said, 3.5 stars out of 4. Alright, so yeah, so that does it for my review of The Hunchback of Notre Dame. I hope you guys enjoyed this review, so yeah, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys later.